The marble halls of the Franklin County Courthouse in Columbus, Ohio, had their own kind of echo, a faint hum of whispers, footsteps, and the occasional metallic clang of a closing door. Inside courtroom 4B, the air was thick with tension. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, casting pale reflections on the polished oak tables. It was supposed to be a routine hearing, but everyone present could sense it. Something about today was different. Something unusual. At the front of the courtroom sat Officer David Morales in his crisp blue uniform. His posture was perfect, back straight, shoulders squared, but his eyes betrayed fatigue. For 12 years, he'd served as a K-9 handler with the Columbus Police Department. His partner, Rex, a muscular German shepherd with golden brown fur and alert amber eyes, sat obediently at his side. The dog's vest bore the words Police K-9 Unit, stitched in silver thread. He looked every bit the hero the crowd believed him to be. The case had drawn unusual attention. 2 months earlier, a late-night robbery at a neighborhood store had ended in chaos. A man was injured, bitten badly, during the arrest. The suspect, James Carter, claimed he was innocent, that he'd been attacked without warning. But the body cam footage shown to the media painted a cleaner story. Rex pursuing a fleeing suspect, Officer Morales shouting commands, and a swift takedown. The department had hailed it as a textbook operation. Still, today's hearing wasn't about praise. It was about confirmation, the final word that would close the file for good. In the gallery, reporters from the Columbus Dispatch and local TV stations waited, pens poised, cameras ready. The public loved stories about loyal police dogs and their heroic deeds. A journalist whispered to another, "Rex's photo got more clicks than the mayor's speech last week." The other chuckled softly. They expected routine testimony, a few legal phrases, and perhaps a wag of Rex's tail to melt hearts. But in the second row, almost unnoticed, sat Emma Carter, James's wife, and their 3-year-old daughter, Lily. Emma's fingers trembled as she adjusted Lily's little cardigan. Her husband's name had been dragged through every headline in town. Though his charges had been reduced, the stain remained. Still, she'd come today not for the court's verdict, but for peace. Lily swung her feet gently, humming to herself. She didn't understand what court was, or why her mother's eyes were red. But she noticed the big dog. Her gaze locked on Rex instantly. Most kids might giggle or point in delight. Lily didn't. Her lips parted slightly, eyes wide with recognition, as though she'd seen a ghost. When the judge, an older woman named Margaret Langford, entered, the bailiff called, "All rise." Everyone stood. The judge's robe swept across the floor as she took her seat. "Be seated," she said firmly. The shuffle of papers, the creak of wooden benches, and the faint hum of the air conditioner blended into a heavy silence. "Officer Morales," the prosecutor began, "you were present on the night of June 12th during the attempted robbery at East Side Market. Please describe what occurred." Morales nodded, his voice measured and calm. "Yes, ma'am." At approximately 11:42 p.m., dispatch received a 911 call reporting an armed suspect inside the store. Rex and I arrived first on scene. We entered from the rear alley and observed a male suspect attempting to exit through the loading dock. I issued a verbal warning. The suspect fled. I deployed Rex, who pursued and apprehended the suspect, Mr. James Carter. He paused, glancing down at Rex, who sat perfectly still. Rex maintained control until I arrived to secure the suspect in handcuffs, Morales continued. Standard procedure. No excessive force was used beyond the dog's lawful engagement. The prosecutor smiled faintly. A rehearsed exchange. Everything sounded neat and professional, the kind of testimony that could be copied straight into a police report. Then came the defense attorney's turn. "Officer Morales," he said, standing slowly, Did you personally witness Mr. Carter with a weapon? Morales hesitated, barely perceptible. No, sir. But the store clerk identified him, and the footage. Thank you. The lawyer cut in smoothly. And did you notice anyone else at the scene when Rex was deployed? Morales frowned. No, the area was clear. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her seat. She remembered that night, the screams, the flashing lights, the confusion. James had gone to buy milk, and moments later, chaos erupted outside. She remembered the barking most of all. That vicious, frantic barking. And little Lily, strapped in her car seat, crying, "Daddy!" Doggy hurt Daddy. The memory burned behind Emma's eyes. As the questioning went on, Rex stayed still, head high, tongue lolling slightly. Children loved police dogs. They were symbols of courage, loyalty, safety. But to Lily, that same dog carried something darker. She tugged gently on her mother's sleeve. "Mommy," she whispered, "that's the doggy from Daddy Night." Emma's heart sank. Baby. It's okay. But Lily wasn't convinced. She kept watching Rex, her brows furrowing, her small fingers clutching her stuffed rabbit tighter. At the front, Morales shifted his stance. The judge asked a few procedural questions. Then, as if cued by fate, the fluorescent light above flickered. The faint hum of the room seemed to disappear, replaced by a heavy stillness, the kind that makes even breathing sound loud. Rex's ears twitched. His tail stopped moving. He looked around the room, then straight toward the gallery, toward Lily. For a brief moment, handler and dog both froze, eyes fixed on the same point. The bailiff glanced up, uneasy. "Everything all right, officer?" "Yes, sir," Morales said quickly, though his voice carried a faint tremor. He tugged lightly at Rex's leash. "Stay, boy?" But Rex didn't move. He stared, chest rising and falling faster than before. And that's when it happened. Lily, with her childlike innocence, lifted her hand and pointed directly at the dog. Her voice, small yet piercing, cut through the courtroom. "Bad dog," she said softly. The room froze. Every sound stopped. The scribbling pens, the clicking cameras, even the judge's gavel paused mid-her. The words hung there, impossibly fragile, yet thunderous in effect. "Bad dog." Emma gasped, pulling her daughter close. "Lily, honey, don't." But it was too late. Morales blinked rapidly, his jaw tightening. Rex let out a low whine, shifting his weight uneasily. The tension felt almost physical, as if the air itself grew heavier. The judge frowned. "Is everything okay there?" Emma stammered. She's only 3. "Your Honor, I'm sorry." But the jurors' faces told a different story. Curiosity, doubt. Even the reporters leaned forward, sensing something raw and unscripted. A child's words didn't belong to rehearsed testimony. They belonged to truth. Morales cleared his throat. "With all due respect, Your Honor, perhaps the child should be removed." "That's unnecessary," the judge interrupted gently. "She's not disturbing the proceedings." But the moment lingered. Sarah Nolan, a detective assigned to assist the prosecution, had been sitting quietly in the back. Her instincts tingled. She'd read the reports, watched the footage, and felt a faint dissonance, something that didn't add up. And now, a 3-year-old just pointed at the department's most decorated police dog and said bad. It wasn't much, but in Sarah's world, details mattered. She scribbled a note on her pad. Check K9 behavior logs. June 12th. Morales finally exhaled. "Your Honor, may I continue my statement?" "Proceed," the judge replied. But even as he resumed his carefully polished testimony, the energy in the room had shifted. The reporters exchanged glances. Rex's posture remained rigid. The jurors whispered faintly among themselves. And in the second row, Lily nestled into her mother's arms, eyes still locked on the dog. Outside, thunder rolled faintly over Columbus, though the sky remained bright. Inside courtroom 4B, every heart beat a little faster. No one could explain why a toddler's 2 words struck such fear, or why the proud K9 hero now looked uneasy in the witness box. But for Detective Sarah Nolan, that whisper would soon unravel everything, every lie, every cover-up, every hidden scar behind the badge. The courtroom returned to order. The judge made a note to reconvene after a short recess. People began to stand, stretch, whisper again. But the silence that had followed Lily's words lingered in the air like smoke, invisible but choking. Emma held her daughter close, her voice trembling. "You did fine, baby. Everything's okay." Lily looked up, innocent and sure. "Mommy," she said quietly, "Doggy hurt Daddy." Emma froze. Her heart stopped. And for the first time, she realized her daughter hadn't just recognized the dog. She remembered. The faint rumble of thunder outside grew louder as recess ended. People shuffled back into courtroom 4B, still whispering about the moment no one could quite explain. A 3-year-old had just pointed at a police dog and said 2 words that froze the entire room. Now the energy had shifted. The once proud tension of law and order was laced with uncertainty, a kind of invisible crack spreading through the floor of the courthouse. Officer Morales sat stiffly at the witness stand, Rex at his side. The German shepherd's head rested low now, eyes darting toward the gallery where Lily and her mother sat. He seemed uneasy, restless in a way that only a handler could notice. Morales tugged at the leash, murmuring, "Easy, boy. Stay down." But the command sounded more like reassurance than authority. The judge returned, her gavel tapping twice. "Court is back in session," she announced. "Officer Morales, please continue your testimony." The hum of whispered curiosity faded. Reporters straightened in their seats, pens ready. Cameras clicked softly from the back row. Flashes kept discreet under the court's strict no disruption rule. Yet even as the words resumed, legal terms, procedural statements, structured questions, all eyes kept drifting toward the little girl who had shattered the silence. Lily sat quietly in her mother's lap now, her gaze calm but fixed on Rex. She didn't smile. She didn't blink much. She just watched. Her hand clutched the corner of her pink blanket, the one she never went anywhere without. Every so often, she whispered something only her mother could hear, and each time she did, Emma's face tightened with a strange mix of fear and guilt. When the prosecutor finished, the defense attorney stood again, ready to dismantle Morales's testimony piece by piece. He was sharp, precise, every word calculated. "Officer Morales," he began, "you mentioned earlier that the suspect, James Carter, was seen fleeing the scene before Rex engaged. Is that correct?" "Yes, sir," Morales said, his voice firm but low. "And you issued a warning first?" "I did. Can you recall your exact words?" "Yes," I shouted. "Police canine, stop or I'll release the dog." The defense attorney nodded slowly. "And what happened next?" "The suspect ran. Rex pursued. And then?" Morales hesitated, just a beat too long. "He apprehended the suspect near the back exit." "Apprehended," the lawyer repeated, pacing slowly. "Could you describe what you mean by that?" Morales exhaled. "Rex performed a bite and hold on the suspect's right arm." "Standard procedure? Until you arrived?" "Yes, sir." The lawyer paused, turned slightly toward the jury, and asked, "And this suspect, was he armed?" Morales's jaw clenched. No weapon was recovered, but, so to confirm, an unarmed man was bitten by your police dog, despite surrendering? The objection came quickly. "Objection, Your Honor. Counsel is twisting testimony. Sustained, said the judge. Rephrase your question. But the seed was already planted. Whispers rippled again through the courtroom. Morales's face reddened. He felt his grip tighten on Rex's leash. The dog gave a low growl, almost like he could sense his handler's discomfort. The defense attorney smiled faintly. No further questions at this time. The judge nodded. Very well. Officer Morales, you may step down. As Morales returned to his seat, Detective Sarah Nolan, seated quietly behind the prosecution table, couldn't ignore the unease coiling in her gut. She'd been on the force for nearly a decade. She'd seen guilty men look calm and innocent men fall apart under pressure. But Morales's reaction wasn't defensive. It was fearful. He wasn't hiding from the defense. He was hiding from the truth. The judge looked toward the gallery. The court will now hear the testimony of Mrs. Emma Carter. Emma froze. Her name echoed like a bell inside her chest. She wasn't expecting to testify today. But the prosecution wanted to clarify the family's presence at the scene that night. Slowly, she stood, kissed Lily's forehead, and walked to the witness stand. Her heels clicked softly against the tile, echoing in a room that felt too big, too bright, too silent. Mrs. Carter, the prosecutor began gently, were you present on the night of June 12th? Yes, Emma said, voice trembling slightly. My husband went to the store that evening. I was in the car with our daughter, Lily. Did you witness the arrest? Emma hesitated. I saw parts of it. There was shouting. I saw the police lights. And then, the dog. The prosecutor's eyes softened. You saw Rex? Yes. He lunged. I remember my husband screaming. I remember. Blood. Her voice broke on the last word. The courtroom fell into heavy silence. The judge didn't interrupt. The reporters stopped writing. Emma swallowed hard. I screamed for help, but the officers were already pulling him away. I tried to tell them he wasn't the robber, but no one listened. They said the dog doesn't make mistakes. She glanced over at Morales, whose eyes dropped instantly. The prosecutor nodded slowly. Thank you, Mrs. Carter. No further questions. The defense didn't cross-examine. There was nothing more to say. When Emma stepped down and returned to her seat, Lily reached for her hand. Mommy, is Daddy coming home? She asked softly. Emma bit her lip, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Soon, baby, soon. The judge announced a 10-minute recess, her tone quieter than before. As the courtroom stirred, Sarah Nolan watched Lily curiously. The child wasn't crying. She wasn't confused. She was calm, too calm. And that calmness unsettled Sarah more than anything else. While most children looked around aimlessly, distracted by shiny badges or uniforms, Lily's eyes tracked Rex. Every movement, every twitch. When the dog yawned and lowered his head, she whispered again, 2 words that sounded like déjà vu. Bad dog. Sarah's chest tightened. She'd heard those words once already, and she couldn't dismiss them as childish nonsense. Not anymore. Something about the way Lily said it, deliberate, remembering, felt loaded with truth. When court resumed, the prosecutor moved to finalize procedural matters. But Sarah barely heard. She was already flipping through her notes, scribbling fragments. Footage timing discrepancy. Body cam cut mid-frame. Check dispatch transcript. Her instincts screamed there was more buried beneath the official story. And then something happened that made her blood run cold. As the bailiff opened the side door, a loud metallic clang echoed, the sound of a dropped baton. It startled the room for half a second, and Rex barked once, loud and sharp. The sudden sound made Lily flinch. She covered her ears and cried out, "Stop! Bad dog, stop!" Her little voice pierced the silence again, trembling with fear and memory. Emma rushed to soothe her, wrapping her arms around her trembling daughter. "It's okay, sweetheart. You're safe." But for Sarah, that outburst wasn't fear. It was recall. Children that young didn't invent trauma. They repeated what they'd seen, what they couldn't forget. The judge ordered a short recess. Reporters whispered furiously. Cameras zoomed in. Morales, red-faced and sweating, avoided everyone's gaze. Rex whimpered softly, lowering himself under the table. Outside in the hallway, Sarah caught Emma before she left. "Mrs. Carter," she said quietly, "may I ask, does Lily talk about that night often?" Emma hesitated. "Sometimes. She wakes up crying. She says the doggy hurt Daddy." Her voice cracked. "I thought she was just confused." Sarah's expression hardened. "Kids remember more than we think. Sometimes their truth is the one adults miss." Emma frowned. "Are you saying Rex?" "I'm saying," Sarah interrupted gently, "there might be more to what happened that night. And your daughter may be the only one who saw it clearly." Emma's lips parted in disbelief. "But she's 3. Sarah nodded. "Exactly." Back inside the courtroom, Morales sat alone at the table, his hand gripping Rex's leash so tightly that his knuckles turned white. The once proud handler now looked like a man cornered by ghosts. Across the aisle, Lily peeked back at him through the open door, not out of anger, but something simpler: recognition. The storm outside broke then. Rain hammering against the tall courthouse windows, lightning flashing faintly. The sound filled every silent second that passed inside. And as thunder rolled over Columbus, Detective Sarah Nolan made a decision. She would reopen the file. Not because of what Morales said, not because of what the defense claimed, but because a 3-year-old's innocent voice had cracked open a truth the justice system had buried. That night, as the courthouse emptied, the echo of Lily's tiny words still haunted the corridors. "Bad dog?" They were no longer just the words of a child. They were the spark that would unravel the lie. The courthouse emptied under a curtain of rain, its steps slick with the reflection of blue police lights. Detective Sarah Nolan lingered near the exit, hands deep in her trench coat pockets, eyes fixed on the puddles rippling beneath the lampposts. She'd sat through hundreds of testimonies, seen hardened criminals fake tears and guilty officers charm juries, but today had felt different. It wasn't the evidence. It wasn't even Morales's carefully measured tone. It was the child. That little girl's 2 words echoed louder than any testimony Sarah had ever heard. She replayed the scene in her head. Lily's trembling voice, the dog's low growl, Morales's sudden tension. It didn't add up. A dog like Rex didn't react that way to nothing. Not in a sterile courtroom, not under command. It was as if the presence of that child had triggered something buried deep in both handler and dog alike. By the time Sarah reached the parking lot, the storm had thickened. Rain streaked across her windshield as she slid into her car. She turned the ignition, but didn't drive. Instead, she stared at her own reflection in the rearview mirror, tired eyes framed by a decade of chasing truth through lies. Her gut, the same instinct that had saved her career more than once, whispered the same thing again and again. Something's wrong with that case. The next morning, she was back at her desk before sunrise, nursing a bitter cup of coffee. The precinct was quiet, the hum of fluorescent lights her only company. She opened her laptop and began digging, quietly, unofficially. The Carter case had been closed quickly, almost too quickly. The report was spotless. No inconsistencies, no missing timestamps. But Sarah knew how to read between lines. She scrolled through the arrest log. Every officer's body cam footage was time-stamped within seconds of each other, except Morales's. His video file started 42 seconds after dispatch had marked dog released. 42 seconds unaccounted for. An eternity in police procedure. She leaned back, frowning. 42 seconds, she murmured. What were you hiding, Morales? She clicked to open the case file attachments. Photos, reports, medical records. One image stopped her cold. Injury report. James Carter. A deep laceration down his right forearm, consistent with a canine bite. But the angle was wrong. Sarah knew how canine takedowns looked. The dog usually struck from the front or the side, not from behind. The bite pattern looked defensive, as if Carter had raised his arm to shield himself. Her stomach turned. He wasn't attacking, she whispered. He was protecting himself. Footsteps echoed behind her. Early start, Nolan? It was Captain Reeves, her supervisor. Broad-shouldered, silver-haired, the kind of man who'd seen too much to be easily surprised. Sarah quickly minimized her screen. Couldn't sleep. Reeves studied her for a beat. You're not reopening that Carter thing, are you? She forced a shrug. Just reviewing some inconsistencies. He sighed. Let it go, Sarah. Morales is one of ours. You start sniffing around his file, you'll make enemies. She looked him dead in the eye. If the case is clean, it won't matter. He hesitated, then walked away. But his silence told her enough. He knew something, too. By noon, Sarah was at the K-9 training facility on the outskirts of Columbus, an old brick building surrounded by open fields. The smell of wet grass and dog fur filled the air. She flashed her badge at the receptionist. Detective Nolan, CPD, I need access to Rex's training records. The receptionist frowned. Those are restricted, ma'am. Sarah leaned forward slightly. This is connected to an open investigation. The woman hesitated, then handed her a folder reluctantly. Keep it quiet. Officer Morales doesn't like people looking through his dog's history. Sarah opened the folder on the counter. The first few pages were routine. Obedience scores, agility tests, scent tracking notes. But halfway through, her heart sank. There it was, a red-stamped notation. Behavioral warning, May 4th. Unprovoked bite during civilian demonstration. The report noted Rex had lunged unexpectedly at a volunteer during a training exercise. The handler, Morales, claimed it was a misread signal. Sarah flipped another page. Another warning. Failed temperament reassessment, May 27th. Recommendation, temporary suspension. It was signed by the head trainer, and then, 2 days later, overridden by Morales himself with the note, re-evaluated. Dog cleared for service. Her pulse raced. Morales had falsified the clearance. He'd knowingly deployed a dog marked unstable. Sarah snapped a photo of the document, tucked the folder back, and left before anyone could stop her. As she stepped into the rain again, her hands trembled, not from the cold, but from the realization that this wasn't just a procedural mistake. It was a cover-up. That afternoon, she drove straight to the hospital where James Carter had been treated months ago. The nurse at the front desk looked up as she flashed her badge. Detective Nolan, I'm following up on a closed police injury case, James Carter, June 12th. The nurse tapped a few keys, then said, he was admitted through the ER around midnight. Brought in by 2 uniformed officers. Said he was a robbery suspect. Did you treat any dog bite victims that night besides him? The nurse checked again, then frowned. No, just him. Sarah's heart sank. So Rex had only bitten one person that night, the man who swore he was innocent. She asked to see the old security footage from the ER. After a few minutes, the nurse led her to a small viewing room. The black and white footage flickered to life on the screen. Sarah leaned closer. There was Carter, bleeding, restrained on a gurney. Two officers hovered nearby. One was Morales. His uniform was spattered with mud. Rex wasn't with him. But something in the background caught Sarah's eye. Another officer handing Morales a USB drive before walking off camera. Morales slipped it into his pocket. Sarah froze the frame. "What were you hiding, Morales?" She whispered again. By evening, her office walls were covered in notes, printouts, and photos. The body cam timestamps, Rex's failed evaluations, the E-footage, all threads weaving toward a single ugly truth. And yet, she still lacked the one piece that could blow the case open. The missing 42 seconds of body cam footage. Her phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Detective Nolan? A hesitant voice said, "This is Emma Carter." Sarah straightened instantly. "Mrs. Carter, are you okay?" I think Lily remembers more than she's saying," Emma whispered. She had another nightmare. She said the doggy jumped when the man yelled stop. Not go. Does that make sense? Sarah's pulse quickened. "Yes," she said quietly. "That makes perfect sense. Because in canine training, stop wasn't an attack word. Go was. If Rex had lunged on the wrong command, the handler wasn't in control. Or worse, he'd done it intentionally." Sarah thanked her, then sat in the dark, the glow of her desk lamp flickering across the evidence pinned to the wall. Outside, the city lights blurred through rain-streaked windows. Somewhere between instinct and duty, she felt the weight of a choice forming. To pursue this meant taking on her own department. To stay silent meant letting an innocent man's life remain broken. Her radio crackled suddenly. "Unit 47, report of disturbance at Eastside Market, the same location as the Carter arrest. Possible break-in." Sarah's blood ran cold. The same store. The same address. Fate was handing her a second look. She grabbed her coat, badge, and gun, then stormed out into the night. As her car raced through wet streets, she couldn't shake the image of Lily, her tiny hand pointing, her voice clear as crystal. "Bad dog." Sarah didn't know yet how deep the truth went. But she knew one thing for certain. That child had seen something no one else had. And whatever it was, it would tear the department apart before this was over. The rain had stopped, but the air was still heavy with the scent of asphalt and secrets. Detective Sarah Nolan parked near the Eastside Market, the same place where everything had begun. The flickering red and blue lights reflected off the puddles, painting the night in shades of guilt. She stepped out of her car, her boots crunching over broken glass. The market's windows were shattered, and officers milled around, murmuring quietly. Sarah flashed her badge, brushing past the yellow tape. "Who called it in?" She asked the patrolman nearest her. "Anonymous," he said, rubbing his neck. "Alarm tripped at 11:46. Nothing stolen, though?" "Just," he hesitated, pointing toward the back door. "This." The back door hung open, its lock smashed clean. Sarah crouched and ran her gloved fingers along the splintered frame. "Forced entry," she murmured. But whoever did it wasn't after cash registers. She stepped inside, flashlights sweeping over the dusty aisles. The place was eerily quiet. The hum of the refrigerators was the only sound. Something about the smell hit her immediately. Not just dust and old produce, but bleach. Someone had tried to clean something up. Then she saw it, a faint smear of blood leading toward the storage room. She followed the trail, her heart pounding. Inside the small back office, the fluorescent light flickered. Papers were scattered across the floor. And there, half hidden under a fallen chair, was a broken security camera. Its lens was cracked, wires torn. "Looks like someone didn't want to be seen," Sarah said under her breath. She picked it up carefully and turned it over. A tiny memory card was still lodged inside. Bingo. Back at her apartment later that night, Sarah connected the card to her laptop. The video loaded after a tense-minute grainy footage from inside the store, timestamped from 2 nights ago. The frame showed 2 shadows entering through the rear door, both wearing police uniforms. One of them had a flashlight. The other, unmistakably, was Morales. His face came into view as he turned toward the camera, unaware it was still recording. Sarah's pulse spiked. Morales knelt near the back wall and pulled something from his jacket, a small black USB drive. He inserted it into the store's old desktop computer, clicked through several files, and deleted them one by one. Then, before leaving, he took the drive back and smashed the computer's CPU with a crowbar. Sarah froze the frame. The date and time matched the exact night she'd received Emma Carter's call. Morales wasn't cleaning up a robbery. He was destroying evidence. Why here? She whispered. What did this place hold? Her phone buzzed on the desk. It was Officer Bennett, her closest ally in the department, a quiet, steady man who'd seen her through more than one political nightmare. Sarah, you up? He asked, voice low. Barely. You sitting down? I'm at the precinct, yeah? Morales was at the East Side Market tonight. I've got him on camera. A long pause. You sure? Positive. He was deleting files. Bennett exhaled. Ben, you need to hear this. Someone ordered IT to purge the Carter case footage from the evidence server this afternoon. Routine cleanup, they said. I checked the timestamp. It happened minutes after your captain called HQ. Her stomach dropped. Reeves? Who else has that kind of authority? Sarah rubbed her forehead. It made sense now. The warnings, the subtle push to let it go. Reeves wasn't protecting Morales. He was protecting the department. By morning, Sarah knew what she had to do. She copied the market footage onto 3 different drives, one hidden in her car, one mailed to a trusted journalist friend, and one she kept on her person. Then she walked into the precinct like nothing had changed. Reeves was already there, sipping coffee in his glass office. His reflection glared back at her as she approached. Morning, detective, he said casually. Rough night? Yeah, she said evenly. Couldn't sleep. Too many questions about the Carter case. He frowned. I told you that's closed business. I know. She leaned forward slightly, her tone sharp as a scalpel. That's what worries me. He set his mug down. Careful, Nolan. You're starting to sound paranoid. Paranoid? She shot back. Or observant? Because I found the missing footage Morales deleted, and it doesn't match his report. For the first time, Reeves's confident smirk faltered. You're treading on dangerous ground. Dangerous for who? She asked quietly. For the officer who unleashed an unstable dog on an unarmed man? Or for the department that helped him cover it up? The silence stretched between them like a loaded gun. Ben Reeves leaned back, forcing a smile. You don't have proof. Sarah met his gaze. Not yet. She turned and walked out before he could respond. Every step echoed down the hallway, every heartbeat heavier than the last. That evening, Sarah met Emma Carter at a small diner outside town. The place smelled of coffee and old wood, the kind of place no one asked questions. Lily sat beside her mother, clutching a small stuffed puppy. She hasn't stopped talking about the bad dog, Emma said softly. She said she saw the man with the shiny badge yell something before the dog jumped. Sarah nodded slowly. Do you remember the word, Lily? Lily frowned in concentration. He said, go. Emma's eyes filled with tears. He told the dog to attack. Sarah reached across the table, squeezing her hand. That's what I needed to hear. She pulled out a folder from her bag. Photos, timestamps, the market footage still frame of Morales. I'm building something, she said. A case that can't be buried. But I need your help. Will you testify if it comes to that? Emma hesitated, then nodded. If it means clearing my husband's name, yes. As they left the diner, Sarah's instincts buzzed again. Across the street, a black SUV idled with its headlights off. She couldn't make out the driver, but she knew the feeling. She was being watched. Back home, Sarah locked the door and sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the flash drive in her hand. Every instinct screamed that she was running out of time. The moment she went public, she'd lose her badge, maybe worse. She opened her laptop one last time and began typing a report, a full chronological record of the Carter case, Morales's violations, Reeves's suppression, and her discovery of the footage. Then she encrypted the file and sent it anonymously to 3 people. Internal Affairs, a journalist at the Columbus Ledger, and a private attorney she trusted. When she hit send, her hands trembled, not from fear, but from finality. Moments later, a loud thud echoed outside her apartment window. Sarah froze. Another sound, the crunch of footsteps on wet gravel. She reached for her gun and moved quietly to the window. Through the slats of the blinds, she saw it. A dark figure standing near her car, flashlight in hand. Then, a metallic click. The sound of her car door opening. Her pulse raced. Whoever it was wasn't there to talk. She stepped back into the shadows, heart hammering. On her laptop screen, the email confirmation blinked. Sent successfully. No matter what happened next, the truth was out there now. Outside, the figure turned toward her building, and the faint beam of light revealed the glint of a police badge. The hum of the rain had turned to silence. Detective Sarah Nolan crouched behind her window, watching the shadow outside her building. The figure's flashlight flickered across her car's interior before shutting off. Then, the person straightened, tall, broad-shouldered, moving with a cop's precision. Sarah's breath caught. That stance. That walk. She knew it instantly. Officer Morales. Her pulse thundered. He wasn't supposed to know. Not yet. Not after the files she'd sent. Morales turned toward the building door. Sarah backed away from the window, stepping softly on the wooden floor. Every instinct screamed to move, but she froze, listening. The faint creak of the downstairs door opening carried up through the stairwell. He was inside. She moved quickly, grabbing her service pistol and slipping it into the holster at her side. Her laptop screen still glowed faintly on the desk, the sent successfully message staring back at her like a lifeline. She closed the lid quietly, slid it into her shoulder bag, and crossed to the back door. But before she reached it, knock, knock, knock. 3 calm, deliberate knocks on her front door. Detective Nolan. Morales's voice came, low, steady, too composed. We need to talk. Sarah's hand hovered near her weapon. About what? She called, forcing her tone flat. About what you're doing, he said. You've got it all wrong. Her heart pounded. Then maybe you should talk to Internal Affairs. Silence. Then his voice darkened. I don't think we need to involve them. Sarah didn't answer. Instead, she slipped out the back door, her shoes splashing in the puddles behind the building. She ran, ducking between parked cars, until she reached the alley behind her complex. Her breath came fast and white in the cold night air. Behind her, the front door of her apartment creaked open. She didn't look back. By dawn, Sarah sat in an all-night diner off Interstate 71, nursing a cup of stale coffee. Her reflection in the window looked like someone she barely recognized. Eyes ringed with exhaustion, hair damp, jacket streaked with rain. Her phone buzzed again, vibrating across the counter. Private number. She hesitated, then answered. Nolan. Detective, a distorted male voice said. You sent something last night. 3 copies. 2 were intercepted. Her stomach clenched. Who is this? You don't know me, but you sent one to the Columbus Ledger. I work there. Your email didn't reach the journalist. The server flagged it. But I got it before it disappeared. You need to meet me now. Sarah's fingers tightened on the phone. Where? North Dock, Pier 6. 20 minutes. Don't bring your car? They're tracking it. The line went dead. Sarah glanced outside. A black SUV idled across the street. Same make, same tinted windows. She slid out of the booth, leaving a few bills on the counter, and exited through the back door of the diner. The alley behind smelled of old grease and rainwater. She moved fast, pulling her hood up, blending into the early morning fog. The North Dock was deserted when she arrived. The wind from Lake Erie whipped through the rusted cranes and shipping containers. A single seagull's cry echoed in the gray dawn. Then, from behind a stack of crates, a man stepped out, mid-30s, clean-cut, wearing a brown coat and messenger bag. He raised a cautious hand. Detective Nolan? Depends who's asking. Name's Eli Grant. Investigative reporter, Columbus Ledger. I used to cover corruption cases before the editor stopped printing them. Sarah eyed him. You said 2 of my emails were intercepted. Yeah. He opened his bag and pulled out a small tablet. The one to Internal Affairs was deleted before it hit their server. The one to the lawyer got bounced. But I saved yours before it vanished. You've got something dangerous, Detective. Tell me something I don't know. He swiped across his screen, showing her the still from the store footage, Morales deleting files. This is what you risked your life for? Sarah nodded. It's bigger than one corrupt cop. My captain's involved. They're erasing everything tied to the Carter case, maybe more. Grant frowned. And you think they'll just let you keep digging? I don't intend to ask for permission. Grant gave a small, grim smile. Then you'll need help. Real help. He handed her a burner phone. Encrypted. I'll upload what you've got to an off-grid server. But once they realize you're talking to me, you'll be on their watch list. I already am, she said quietly. By the time Sarah returned to her apartment complex, the SUV was gone. But her gut told her she wasn't safe. Inside, she found her door slightly ajar. She drew her gun and pushed it open. The living room was trashed, drawers emptied, papers scattered. Her laptop was gone. Her heart sank. They'd taken her copy, but they hadn't found the one hidden under the floorboard in her bedroom. She retrieved it quickly, hands shaking, and slipped the flash drive into her pocket. Her phone buzzed. A new message from Grant. Upload complete. Files safe. But Morales is missing. Someone wiped his locker at the precinct. Sarah froze. Missing? She called Bennett immediately. Where's Morales? I was going to call you, Bennett said, voice tight. He didn't show up for shift. Reeves says he's on leave, but there's no paperwork. IA's acting blind. Something's going down, Sarah. Get out of the station, she warned. Don't say my name to anyone. You understand? Yeah, be careful. The line went dead. That evening, Sarah parked outside Reeves's house, a quiet brick home on the edge of town. His lights were on. Through the curtains, she saw him pacing with a phone pressed to his ear. She waited until his car was gone, then walked up to the porch, careful not to trip the motion light. She slipped her badge under the mat, symbolic, final, then picked the side gate lock and moved toward the garage. The door was cracked open. Inside, she found what she wasn't supposed to see. A black SUV, the same black SUV. Her pulse quickened. The license plate had been removed, but the back seat told the story. Mud tracks, a police-issued flashlight, and a half-empty bottle of Morales's preferred energy drink. She snapped photos with her phone, her breath clouding in the cold air. Then a noise behind her. "Detective." Sarah spun, weapon drawn. Reeves stood in the doorway, face shadowed, voice calm. "Put it down." "She didn't? Where's Morales?" Reeves tilted his head. "You really don't get it, do you? You think this is about one bad arrest? That man you're protecting, Carter, he's not innocent. Then why hide the footage?" He stepped closer. "Because that footage would tear the city apart. Morales followed orders. So did I, and so did you, until now." Her finger tightened on the trigger. "You covered up an attack on an unarmed man, Captain." Reeves's expression hardened. "No, Detective. I covered up a mistake that could destroy a department full of good men. You leak that file, and every case Morales ever worked will collapse. You'll turn heroes into villains." Sarah's voice shook, but her aim didn't. Maybe that's what they deserve. For a moment, neither moved. Then Reeves exhaled slowly, lowering his gaze. "You won't stop, will you?" "No," she said. He gave a small nod, almost sad. "Then God help you." He turned and walked back toward the house. Sarah stood frozen, her weapon still raised, until his door slammed shut. Then she backed away, trembling, knowing she just crossed a line she could never step back over. Later that night, parked in an empty lot, she called Grant. "It's bigger than we thought," she said. "They're protecting something, or someone." Grant's voice came through steady. "Then we expose them all." Sarah looked out at the dark horizon, city lights flickering in the distance like fading stars. The flash drive felt heavy in her pocket, but it was more than evidence now. It was the truth, and it had a pulse. "Tomorrow," she said quietly, "we make this public." But deep down, she knew tomorrow might never come. The morning the leak went live, the city of Hartford awoke to sirens, not the wailing kind, but the digital kind. Phones buzzed. News anchors interrupted regular programming. Headlines flashed across screens. Police K-9 officer linked to missing child case. New evidence emerges. Detective Ryan Holloway stood in his kitchen, a half-drained cup of coffee trembling in his hand as the TV blared. His phone wouldn't stop ringing texts, voicemails, internal alerts. The leak had dropped everything. Files, photos, timestamps, even the dog's handler's name. Whoever sent it had full access. It wasn't subtle. It was nuclear. He didn't need to guess who was behind it. "Sarah," he muttered under his breath. Across town, Sarah sat in her car parked behind the courthouse. The same courthouse where a little girl had once pointed at a dog and shattered the silence. Her laptop sat open, the news site's homepage still glowing on the screen. She hadn't slept. The reporter, Tom, had kept his word, publishing everything exactly as she documented it. No edits, no protection for anyone involved. She watched people flooding into the courthouse. Police officers were being escorted out. Cameras lined the steps. The air buzzed with chaos and vindication, the kind she'd dreamed of, but now that it was real, it felt like standing in the center of a storm she'd unleashed herself. Her phone vibrated. Ryan Hawley. She hesitated, then answered. "Sarah," his voice came through, tight, low. "Do you realize what you've done?" Her throat burned. "I told the truth. You leaked active evidence. You could have blown the entire investigation." "I didn't leak it," she said softly. The truth leaked itself when no one listened. Ryan exhaled through his nose, fury and fear mixing in his tone. "You've made enemies in uniform, Sarah. Stay home. Don't talk to anyone." But before she could respond, he hung up. By noon, the story had spread nationwide. News vans crowded every block. Protesters gathered outside the police headquarters, parents with signs, reporters shouting questions, even off-duty officers who'd had enough of the silence. The K-9's handler, Officer Jack Keller, was suspended pending investigation. But the real shock came when a new recording surfaced. Body cam footage, time-stamped from the night of the child's disappearance. The footage showed Keller standing by his patrol car, radioing something indecipherable. Then, faintly, a child's voice crying in the background. The clip ended abruptly. The public erupted. Ryan slammed his fist on his desk. Who had access to this? He barked. His team looked uneasy. Sir, this wasn't part of any file in our system. It's like it came from outside. Outside? Ryan's mind spun. There was only one explanation. Someone had been recording off the grid, possibly to protect themselves. He replayed the clip over and over. The child's voice, soft, trembling, echoed through his office like a ghost. The words were faint, but Ryan heard it the fourth time. Doggy. No. His stomach turned cold. The missing girl's voice. Meanwhile, Sarah sat in a quiet diner, head low beneath her hoodie. The waitress poured her coffee and gave a sympathetic smile, one of those looks that said, "I saw you on TV, honey." Tom, the reporter, slid into the booth across from her. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot. "You didn't tell me they'd come after me too." Sarah looked up sharply. "Who? Internal Affairs? They think I paid you for those files. They're threatening obstruction charges." Her hands shook around the mug. "I didn't mean—" "I know," he interrupted. "But it's out there now. You can't undo this." They sat in silence as police cruisers rolled by outside, blue lights reflecting through the diner windows. Every headline, every conversation in the city now revolved around a 3-year-old's courtroom words and a dog's broken silence. Back at headquarters, Ryan got the call he'd been dreading. "Detective Halle, we have Keller in custody. He's requesting you personally." Ryan paused. "What does he want?" The line crackled. "He says he's ready to talk." Ryan grabbed his badge and coat. The city outside was alive with noise protests, reporters, outrage, but inside his car, all he could hear was the hum of the engine and the weight of what was coming. When he entered the interrogation room, Keller sat with his head bowed, his hands cuffed. He looked older, exhausted, like a man who'd finally stopped fighting the inevitable. "I didn't hurt her," Keller said before Ryan could sit. "You need to know that." "Then what happened?" Ryan demanded. Keller's eyes lifted, haunted. "They told me to keep quiet. Said it was an accident. Said the department couldn't afford another scandal." "Who told you?" Keller's lips trembled. "Command. Someone higher up, they said. If I talked, I'd lose everything." Ryan stared at him. The pieces fell together, not just a handler covering up a mistake, but a system protecting itself. "What happened to the girl?" he asked quietly. Keller swallowed hard. "She ran when we got to the yard. The dog followed. I found her minutes later crying, shaking. I called it in, but before backup arrived, she was gone. They told me to say nothing." Ryan clenched his jaw. "You're saying she's still out there?" Keller's voice dropped. "No, I'm saying someone made sure we'd never find her." That night, Ryan drove to the river where the girl's toy had first been found. Flashlights from news crews danced along the banks, but Ryan walked past them, stopping near the waterline. Something about Keller's confession gnawed at him, an unfinished truth. The girl's mother had sworn she saw Keller's patrol car near her house that night. The footage confirmed it. But if Keller wasn't the one who silenced the evidence, who was? His phone buzzed again. "Sarah." "Ryan," she said, her voice unsteady. "There's something you need to see." He turned toward the city skyline, lights flickering through the fog. "What now?" "It's the rest of the footage," she said. "Someone just sent it to me anonymously." Ryan froze. "Play it." There was static, then motion. A dark alley. Keller's patrol car idling. The sound of a dog barking furious, frantic. Then a man's voice off camera, deep and commanding. "Get that kid out of sight. Now." The voice wasn't Keller's. It wasn't anyone from the K9 unit. Ryan recognized it instantly, and his heart sank. It was the chief's. The city that had once trusted its police now trembled under the weight of betrayal. The story was no longer about a missing child or a brave toddler's 2 words. It had become a war between truth and power, a war that Sarah, Ryan, and a little girl's voice had just begun. And the next morning, the chief's office was empty. His car was gone. And in his place, on the desk, sat a single envelope addressed to Detective Hiley. The envelope on the chief's desk was unmarked plain white, sealed with a faint fingerprint smudge. Detective Ryan Hiley stared at, feeling the same chill that had followed him since the leak. The office was eerily quiet. No secretary. No chatter. Just the hum of the fluorescent lights and the faint smell of stale coffee. He picked it up, hesitated, and tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper. Typed words. No signature. "Stop digging. You don't understand what you're part of." No threats. No names. Just that single warning. Ryan folded the paper slowly. His instincts screamed that the chief hadn't just run, he'd been helped to disappear. Behind him, a young officer stepped into the doorway. "Sir, there's a warrant out for Sarah Collins. Internal Affairs is saying she conspired in the leak." Ryan's pulse spiked. "That's absurd. She's a whistleblower, not a criminal." "Orders came from high up," the officer said quietly. "They're coming for her today." Ryan didn't hesitate. He grabbed his car keys and bolted. Sarah didn't know she was being hunted yet. She was still in the tiny motel room on the edge of town, blinds drawn, her laptop open to a dozen tabs of breaking news. The city was in uproar, marches, resignations, demands for justice. But she wasn't celebrating. Her stomach twisted with dread. She knew what came after truth: retaliation. A knock at the door made her flinch. She peeked through the blinds. It was Ryan. When she opened the door, he stepped in quickly, closing it behind him. "You need to move now." Her heart raced. "Why? What's happening?" "They're coming for you. IA wants you arrested for the leak. They'll paint you as the villain to save the department." Sarah shook her head, trembling. "No, I can explain." "You don't get it," Ryan cut in. "There's no explaining. They want a scapegoat. You fit." She looked at him, tears welling. "So what do I do?" Ryan's voice lowered. "You disappear." They drove through the outskirts of Hartford in silence, headlights slicing through early dawn fog. Ryan had ditched his badge, tucked it in the glove compartment like a confession. "Where are we going?" she asked finally. "Someplace no one will think to look," he said. "A friend of mine has a cabin out in Vermont. No cell towers, no roads for miles." Sarah stared out the window. "You're risking your career for me." He didn't look at her. Careers can be rebuilt. Lives can't. For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the tires filled the air, rhythmic, tense. Sarah wanted to believe this would end soon, that justice would somehow win, but she knew better. The truth had made her a target. And somewhere, the man who'd started it all, the chief, was free. By the time they reached the Vermont border, the radio was alive with chaos. The governor had called for a full investigation. The mayor resigned. Keller, the K9 handler, had been found dead in his holding cell. Suicide, according to official reports. Sarah gasped when she heard. No, He wouldn't. Ryan's knuckles widened on the steering wheel. No, he wouldn't. They both knew what that meant. Someone was cleaning house. He turned off the highway and drove down a narrow dirt road, overgrown with brush. A small cabin appeared through the tree's weathered wood, an old porch, smoke rising from a dormant chimney. "This is it," he said. Inside, it was quiet and cold. Dust floated in the sunlight. Sarah sank onto a couch, exhaustion hitting her all at once. Ryan locked the door and checked the windows. His phone had no signal. They were safe for now. That night, as Sarah sat by the fire, she finally broke the silence. When that little girl pointed at the dog in court, I thought that was the end of it. I thought justice would just happen. Ryan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. It never does on its own. I used to believe in the system, she said, staring into the flames. Now, I don't know what to believe. He nodded slowly. Believe in truth, even if it doesn't save us. A faint crack outside made them both freeze. Ryan drew his gun and moved to the window. A dark SUV sat idling down the hill, lights off. They found us, he muttered. He killed the cabin's lights and motioned for Sarah to stay low. Through the glass, he saw two figures step out of the SUV, silhouetted, moving in formation. Not police uniforms. Tactical gear. Sarah whispered, "Ryan." He crouched by the door, voice calm but urgent. "When I say run, you run for the woods. Don't look back." The crunch of gravel grew closer. The porch creaked. One of the men raised something metallic battering ram. Ryan fired once, hitting the doorframe, sending them ducking for cover. "Go," he shouted. Sarah bolted through the back, grabbing her bag. The cold air slapped her face as she sprinted into the trees, branches clawing her arms. Behind her, gunshots cracked through the stillness. "Ryan," she screamed. "Keep running," he yelled back. She stumbled down a hill, her heart pounding, until the shots faded. Only the wind and her ragged breathing filled the night. She crouched behind a fallen log, hands shaking uncontrollably. Hours later, she crept back toward the cabin. Smoke curled through the trees. The SUV was gone. The door hung open, splintered from impact. Inside, the fire was out. The floor was scorched. Ryan's jacket lay on the ground, but he wasn't there. Her knees gave out, "Ryan." She whispered, her voice breaking. Then she saw it on the table, beside his badge. A small flash drive taped to a folded note. Her trembling fingers peeled it free. The note read, "If you're reading this, they got me. Take this to the press. Don't stop. The chief's not hiding. He's being protected." Tears streamed down her face. She clutched the drive to her chest, the only piece of him left. By dawn, Sarah was on a bus heading south, hood pulled low, the flash drive hidden inside her sleeve. The world outside rolled by in gray blurs of morning fog and endless road. She didn't know where she was going, only that she couldn't stop now. The truth was out there, buried under fear and corruption, and she was the last one who could bring it to light. As the bus crossed into Massachusetts, her phone buzzed for the first time in hours. An unknown number. A text. "You can't run forever, Miss Collins." Her breath caught. Then, another message appeared beneath it. "But neither can we." Attached was a video file, its thumbnail, frozen on the face of the missing child. Sarah's fingers trembled as she pressed play. The bus rattled along the highway, its windows streaked with the pale light of dawn. Sarah stared at the phone in her trembling hands, her reflection flickering on the screen. The message still glowed. "You can't run forever, Miss Collins, but neither can we." Beneath it was the video file. Her thumb hovered over the play button. Every instinct screamed not to open it, not here, not now, but curiosity and fear tangled until she couldn't resist. She pressed play. The video opened on shaky footage, grainy, night vision green. A flashlight beam cut across tall grass and trees. Voices whispered in the background. Then she saw her. The little girl. The same child whose small hand had once pointed at a police dog in court. Her clothes were dirty, her eyes red from crying. She was clutching a stuffed toy, the one Sarah remembered from the evidence photo, the little bunny with the torn ear. Doggy. No, the girl whimpered again. Sarah's chest tightened. She knew that voice from the courtroom recording. It was unmistakable. But then came something else. A second figure stepped into view, larger, wearing a tactical vest. His face was shadowed, but his voice was clear. Get her in the car. We'll handle it from here. The voice wasn't the chief's this time. It was deeper, controlled, familiar. Ryan Hall. The phone slipped from Sarah's hand and clattered to the bus floor. The passengers around her looked up briefly, then turned away. Her mind spun, refusing to believe what she'd heard. Ryan? The man who'd risked everything to protect her? No, it couldn't be. Her hands fumbled to replay the video, heart hammering in her chest. She turned the volume up, pressed her ear to the speaker. The footage played again, same scene, same words. And there it was, Ryan's voice, giving an order. Get her in the car. Then another man answered, one she didn't recognize. We can't keep this quiet forever. Ryan replied coldly, then make sure no one ever finds her. The video ended in static. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Her pulse pounded so hard, she thought she might pass out. She didn't want to believe it, but the voice, the tone. It was him. She felt betrayed, shattered. Everything she'd fought for, every person she'd trusted, it all unraveled in a single minute of footage. The bus screeched to a stop. Sarah grabbed her bag and stumbled out onto the roadside before she even realized where she was. The air was damp and cold. Fog hung low over an empty gas station. She sat on a bench, the phone clutched in her hands. Tears blurred her vision. No, Ryan wouldn't. She whispered. A low rumble of an engine pulled her from her thoughts. A black sedan rolled up to the station and stopped. The driver's door opened. Ryan stepped out. For a moment, neither spoke. They just stared at each other through the fog, two people who'd been through fire, now strangers again. Sarah rose slowly, her voice trembling. You were there, weren't you? Ryan's jaw tightened. You saw the video. She held up the phone. It's your voice. He looked away, his expression unreadable. It's complicated. Complicated? That little girl is gone. You told me you were fighting for the truth. I was, he said, voice cracking. Until I realized the truth would destroy more lives than it saved. Sarah stepped closer, fury replacing fear. So you buried it? You became one of them? Ryan's shoulders sagged. You don't understand what I was facing. They threatened my family. My son, Sarah. I had to make a choice. She shook her head, tears streaming down. You chose wrong. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded envelope, worn, weathered. I never stopped trying to make it right, he said softly. You think that flash drive was random? I gave it to you because I couldn't trust anyone else. Sarah stared at him, unsure whether to believe. What's on it? She asked. Ryan stepped closer, lowering his voice. The full story. The people behind it. The girl wasn't just a victim, she was a witness. She saw something she wasn't supposed to see. What did she see? The chief. And the mayor. That night, they were running a private operation, smuggling, seized evidence through police storage. Money, drugs, you name it. Keller stumbled onto it. The girl saw Keller with the dog, but what she really saw was the chief. They silenced her to protect the operation. Sarah's voice was barely a whisper. And you helped them cover it up. Ryan's eyes filled with guilt. I thought I could fix it from the inside. I was wrong. He handed her the envelope. Inside is everything. The rest of the recordings, documents, names. Get it to Tom. He'll know what to do. Sarah hesitated, torn between rage and heartbreak. Why are you giving me this now? Because they're coming for me next, he said. They can't afford to let me live with what I know. A gunshot cracked through the fog. Ryan staggered. Sarah screamed. He fell to his knees, blood spreading across his shirt. Go, he gasped. Run. She dropped to his side, clutching his hand. I'm not leaving you. He looked up at her, pain etched across his face. You were right. Truth matters more than fear. Then his hand went limp. Sarah sobbed, clutching his jacket, the envelope crumpled in her fist. Headlights flared in the distance, black SUVs, speeding toward the gas station. She grabbed Ryan's badge from the ground and ran. Hours later, the footage aired on every major network in the country. The flash drive had been uploaded by Tom, just as Ryan instructed. The files exposed everything: the corruption, the missing evidence, the orders that silenced the girl. The chief was arrested trying to flee the country. The mayor resigned within hours. A federal task force took over the department. And Sarah Collins disappeared. No one knew where she went. Some said she moved overseas under a new name. Others believed she stayed in the U.S., quietly helping other whistleblowers tell their stories. But the truth she'd unleashed couldn't be buried again. Months later, a ceremony was held at the rebuilt courthouse. A bronze statue stood outside, the figure of a small child, pointing toward a police dog, her expression innocent yet powerful. The plaque beneath it read, "Dedicated to the truth, no matter how small the voice that speaks it." A woman stood at the edge of the crowd, wearing a hood and dark glasses. She watched silently as people laid flowers beneath the statue. For a moment, she smiled. Then she turned and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Far away, in a quiet evidence room sealed long ago, an officer dusting old boxes found a single VHS tape mislabeled. Training footage 2018. He slid it into the player. Static flickered. Then the little girl's face appeared again, smiling this time, sitting beside the police dog, her hand resting gently on its head. A man's voice behind the camera said softly, "You're safe now, sweetheart. We'll make sure they never hurt you again." The voice wasn't Ryan's. It wasn't the chief's. It was Tom's. The reporter. The screen went dark.